Ready, boys and girls?
We are.
Good evening. My name is Grant Russell. I'm President Pro Tem of Findlay City Council. When Mayor Mern or President of Council Harrington is absent, I move from that side over to this side, give my fellow council reps in the back row a little bit more elbow room, and I run the meeting. Mayor Mern is absent today, attending on some family emergency business. I would ask your prayers for the mayor and her family. And with that, I will call this Findlay City Council meeting of August 1st, 2023 to order. Start with a roll call.
Mr. Ballman?
Here.
Ms. Frischi?
Here.
Mr. Greeno?
Here.
Mr. Hellman?
Here.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Here.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Russell?
Here.
Mr. Slough?
Here.
Ms. Warnicki?
Here.
And Mr. Wopser?
Present.
Thank you. Will please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance plus a moment of silence. I haven't done this for a while. We have our acceptance of our previous public hearing and council meeting minutes. So first, the July 18th, 2023 public hearing minutes for the fiscal year 24 estimated revenues. Do I have a motion to approve? Mr. Slough, second. Mr. Greeno. All in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
And those minutes are accepted. We also have the July 18th, 2023 regular session of council meeting minutes. Motion to accept is Mr. Ballman. Mr. Slough is a second. Any questions or comments? All in favor of accepting those meeting minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
And those are accepted. We have no add-on replacements or removals from the agendas, no proclamations, no recognition or retirement resolutions. We have one petition.
A zoning amendment request for 200 West Lincoln Street from Findlay City Schools to change the zoning of 200, I just said that, West Lincoln Street to C3 Downtown Commercial. It is currently zoned R3 Small Lot Residential. I transposed those on the agenda.
Okay. And that will refer that to the City Planning Commission and the Planning and Zoning Committee. Moving on to oral communications. Council, we have 8 total oral communication requests for today. 2 of them are on different on unique subjects. 6 of them concern the West McPherson case and or property. I don't really know on which side of the issues the 6 are. But I would ask that council just, our rules say 3-3. I would ask that council waive those rules and we allow all 6 people wanting to address council on the McPherson property to have the ability to do so. Mr. Wopser.
So moved.
Second, Mr. Ballman. All in favor of allowing everyone to speak tonight, please say aye.
Aye.
And so that's the way we'll do it. Everyone will speak. You get 4 minutes. I am the official timekeeper. Actually, my friends at Apple Watch are the official timekeeper, and I will kind of wave my hand when you get to about 30 seconds left. To start off, we have Ashley Donaldson from 116 East Lima Street. Wants to address council concerning traffic law enforcement, specifically regarding pedestrian safety in downtown. Ashley, the microphone is yours. Please make sure it's on and not red.
Hello. Alrighty. I am one of the 2 not speaking about McPherson, but I'll start by saying I bet you never expected someone with a CDL to come before you to ask that traffic laws be enforced, but here I am. I had my closest call as a pedestrian this morning, as I was crossing Main Street at Sandusky towards the park on the corner with the walk light. An elderly man in a silver pickup with his handicap placard hanging from his mirror did not stop until I screamed and flailed my arms. This has happened multiple times. Two pedestrians across the street watched this, and countless cars. My first call was to a friend I had just seen and said goodbye to across the street, telling him it was very nearly our last goodbye. He informed me the mutual friend had been hit on her bicycle Sunday night by a drunk driver, also on Sandusky Street. I came out much better than our friend, who has a fractured vertebrae and potentially additional injuries. This truck stopped about a foot away from me, by the way. Another friend's father was hit crossing Lincoln by the Hancock Hotel a couple of years ago. The hotel's shared sidewalk and driveway is also a huge hazard for pedestrians. On February 23rd, 2017, a mobile meth lab crashed into the exact location where I was nearly hit this morning, which caused a second wreck at that time. And that incident came on an oddly warm February evening when downtown was really busy. It could have been a lot worse. It took 6 years for the damage from that accident to be fixed at the park, and now a multi-million-dollar park is being proposed just a few blocks away with the hopes of increasing activity in downtown Findlay. I'm constantly on high alert when I'm walking. Drivers never stop unless it's to shout a threat or physically threaten me with their vehicle, which has happened, which I have reported to the police. When I made that report, the police asked me why it took so long to report it, then never said another word about it, despite Marathon having cameras facing where this happened. I had to reroute my walk between home and work on North Main Street. After being verbally sexually harassed, I stopped and spoke to a police officer driving past shortly after that incident. He said the police know the particular address is a problem and nothing more was done. Please imagine your daughter or wife telling a police officer that she is being consistently sexually harassed at the same location, only to have the officer say, "Yeah, we know," followed by a suggestion to change her route. Using the address of 116 North Main Street, the approximate address of the proposed park, the Hancock County Sheriff's Office registered sex offenders database states that 12 sexual offenders live within half-a-mile radius of this proposed park. 29 offenders live within a mile. After I called the mayor's office this morning, I was encouraged to speak here and to the police. The officer I spoke with this morning agreed with my statement that drivers in this town are terrible. I told him that I do not feel safe walking or driving my car. My car is small and the color of pavement, but that does not have any excuse for other drivers to treat it as invisible. The officer told me he would make a request for more patrols downtown and at an alley where I have had numerous close calls. Why is a civilian having to ask for laws to be enforced? I know I'm not the only person in this room who walks down Main Street. Downtown is already not safe for pedestrians or cyclists or drivers for that matter. Since the current traffic laws are already not enforced and drivers know what they can get away with, how is a pedestrian, cyclist, or other driver safety going to be guaranteed with the addition of a big park when we are already not safe? So my suggestion is to please enforce current traffic laws before we add another large space downtown, encouraging more people to be walking down Main Street, driving down Main Street. It's a state route. The sheriff's department and the patrol could also help enforce these laws, etc.
Questions or comments for Ms. Donaldson? Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Next, we'll have Tom DeMute. Ooh, you stop. Next, Tom DeMuth, 134 Shinkle Street, concerning a water and sewer report. Tom, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, Pro Tem, and council members, to let me speak. Speaking about the water and sewer rates, the billing lately, there's been a big stink about that. In my opinion, I feel that the administration and council has failed the city of Findlay with their water billing and lack of readings, which is, you know, it's already said and done. It's water down the drain, let's say. I'm glad to see that council has done something, or the committee has done something about the billing. I think the 24-month grace period is great. The 500% variance, I'm not sure about. I don't know where that came from, or did you use a dartboard? Is it something, some formula was used? I believe the 75% lost water being waived is great. I was just curious of where that 500% come from.
Mr. Hellman.
If I may, maybe Jeremy Kaub or Rob Martin could answer that question.
Mr. Martin?
So it's a good question. That is a significant percentage. And what we did is we took the first round of the transmitters that were installed, and we looked at all the variances. Some had credits, some were spot on, and obviously there were some that had balances because of the estimates. We looked at the data and we found that the 500%, even though it's an obnoxious percentage, that was the extremes. And we were trying to narrow it down to find a consistent formula to use, and those were the extremes. That percentage aligned with the extreme outliers of significant bills. So there was a methodology behind it, and that was, when we looked at the extreme outliers, that was the percent that aligned with it.
Okay. I was just curious of where that number came from. 500% over a bill is big.
It
But
is.
so is 300% over is big too. I was just wondering why we settled at 500%.
If you look at the percentage, it's proportionate, because any hike in a bill is significant for people, and different people have different incomes, and it's all we tried to find a balance, because somebody could have a really significant water bill on a fixed income, and some people have discretionary income. So we're trying to find a balance that it doesn't impact. It's equivalent across the people that have these outliers. Again, the percentage, I hate to use the percent, but if you look at, somebody might have actually had a $1 bill or a $4 bill, a minimum bill over those 2 years, and then all of a sudden they get this regular water bill and it's $500, but they're or 500%. I'm sorry, that 500% comes into play, but their water bill is actually normal. It could be a $120 water bill, but that percentage comes into play. And then you have the extreme ones where you have those multi-$1,000 water bills because of leaks and whatnot. So again, we looked at all the water bills that were reconciled through our first run installing the transmitters, and we found that 500% aligned with the extreme outliers. We are working with all the residents that are being impacted on this. We're trying to find a methodology that makes sense, because we know this is impacting people. And this is a situation that we're in and we're trying to work through. We saw this coming, and now we're dealing with the situation because we can't communicate with the transmitters because of the technology. So we're dealing with a situation, and we're doing the best we can. We've forefronted a 5-year project to get this done because we wanted to get this resolved.
Right.
And now we're trying to find that methodology so we can work with the customers as fair and equitable as possible.
Questions or comments for Tom? Tom, I've seen the visuals of this. It might be worthwhile if you want to get with Rob and actually see the workout calculations versus trying to explain without the visuals.
Yeah, I mean, if you even have a small leak, and most people don't know how to look at a leak detector or can't have access to it, so they have no clue if they're leaking or not. I mean, with the old system, even before they had the electronic system in, meter readers went around and they could look at a meter and say, oh my gosh, you used way more than what you're supposed to, and get a hold of somebody. Well, right now you got a small leak, you don't know it unless you go out and you check your leak detector on the meter and know how to do it and what it is. You could have that and still have a 300% over your bill, and you're going, what? So I just wondered where that 500% come from and where it is. I'll get with you, Rob, and we'll take a look. I'd like to be curious to see what it says.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next to speak is Linda Vandermolen, 311 Stadium Drive, concerning West McPherson. Linda, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Linda Vandermolen, and I live at 311 Stadium Drive. I am here to ask you to prevent the rezoning of 0 West McPherson. I emailed each of you on July 18th regarding my valid concerns of the negative effects of the proposed zoning change will have on the Donnell neighborhood. I trust you read it carefully. I tried to convey how special the Donnell neighborhood is and my concerns for safety, traffic, and property values. You must protect the property values of all of these existing investors. One investor's financial endeavor cannot supersede the financial well-being of our existing homeowners. I am asking you to protect all of us existing investors. I must question whether this project is an extenuation of the failed demolition grant proposed for this same structure. The grants were to benefit a nonprofit organization with our mayor as a board member. The same organization, with the mayor still on the board, will once again benefit by not having to pay for the demolition of the building on their property. The investor was sold this building for $1. He bought the McPherson property fully aware that it is not zoned for high-density multifamily. He was given the approval for the rezoning from the City Planning Commission, which has as its chairwoman that same mayor. After inquiring about how best to approach City Council with my concerns, our mayor did not offer a suggestion on how to best express my concerns, instead suggested that I negotiate with the investor. My issue is in no way with the investor. My issue is with you. You have been elected to represent us. Please note that the City of Findlay zoning ordinance states its purpose of, and I quote, protecting and conserving the character, social, and economic stability of the residential areas by securing the most appropriate use of land, by preventing overcrowding of the land and undue congestion of population. Rezoning this lot does not fulfill the zoning ordinance purpose. It will alter the character, social, and economic stability of our residential area. It is not the most appropriate use of the land, nor does it prevent overcrowding of the land as indicated by the requested variance to ignore the ordinance in place, 1126.05A, requiring 3,500 square feet of lot size per living unit. The rezoning does not protect undue congestion of population, as it will double the current population on West McPherson. Our mayor and regional planning commissioner have proposed changes to our zoning ordinance, which is currently up for approval by you. Those changes include section 1115.05, granting of variance. It states 7 factors, and I will quote 4 of them. In determining whether a grant variance, the board shall consider the following factors. A, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be any beneficial use of the property without variance. There can absolutely be another use of this property without the variance. B, whether the variance is substantial. Changing from 16 provided units to the new zone and asking for 24, reducing 53 parking spaces to 41, I consider substantial. Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance, clearly the character of our neighborhood will be negatively impacted. And certainly the adjoining properties of this will suffer substantial detriment. And lastly, point E, whether the property owner purchased the property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction. He certainly did. The variances to the proposed zone change that this project requires cannot be granted. Mayor Mern and Mr. Cordonier both approved rezoning of 0 West McPherson as members of the City Planning Commission. They also promote and condone the aforementioned considerations to be vital to future rezoning. Does the law apply to everyone? Do these only need to be considered for future investors? Do we have a zoning ordinance that has been enacted into law to simply ignore it when we find a project that will benefit a
Linda?
valued nonprofit?
Mr. Wobser?
I'd make a motion. Linda, are you finished? Or do you have some more?
I'm reading as fast as I can. I had like 2 more sentences.
Okay, I'd make a motion that she give him time to continue.
Second, Mr. Green. All in favor of giving the Linda
Thank you.
additional time, please say aye.
Thank you.
Keep going, Linda. Thank you.
Council members, you have been elected to represent us. You have been sworn to follow the laws of this city. You cannot fulfill either of those obligations and choose to vote for the rezoning of 0 West McPherson. I and my neighbors implore you to vote against this rezoning. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Linda? Thank you. Next up is Tom, no. Next up is Tom Romick, 320 West McPherson Avenue, concerning the West McPherson Avenue apartments.
Tom
Mr.
Romick,
Romick.
excuse me. Tom Romick, I live at 320 West McPherson. And what I want to talk about is maybe a little bit of history. And I want to talk about the history of the Lake Cascades project. The Lake Cascades project was supposed to be for multi-family, single units, everything. I remember the guy who developed that project lived beside me for a while. And there was a big affair at the mall. Jim, did you go there? Yeah. And there are renderings out there. Multifamily, single family, businesses, and things like that. The thing that bothers me about this whole thing is if that was down in Lake Cascades, it would be wonderful. There would be not a problem. You know, and it would be easy to make or easy to build. It would be, now I don't know why Lake Cascades hasn't developed, but the other thing that I hear is there are no areas for multifamily development. And I don't know why that was never followed through. And I think that's the responsibility of you guys. You know, and somebody, in my opinion, dropped the ball. And that nothing we can do about it, but I think we need to look at what we have and make the best use of it. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Mr. Romick? Thank you, Tom. Next up, we have Deborah, and I'm going to butcher your last name. Pregabon? Pregabon. 1124 Hurd Avenue, concerning West McPherson.
Hello. As a resident of the Donnell neighborhood, and I'm short, sorry. I need a little step stool. As a resident of the Donnell neighborhood for over 35 years, I object to Mr. Yates' request for 1, use variance, and 2, area variances. In connection with the YMCA motel-style apartment building that is inconveniently located on the site of the Wise planned expansion. The use variance that was approved by the commission will allow Mr. Yates to move this apartment-style, motel-style apartment to our neighborhood. The building lacks any charm, appeal, or defining characteristics that will allow it to seamlessly integrate into our area. To make matters worse, the area variance will allow Mr. Yates to make this atrocious building even bigger, increasing the building's footprint, adding a 3rd story. He will also be permitted to decrease the number of parking spaces by 25%. Now, section 1113.18 of the Planning Commission's Rules and Procedures states that, in all cases, the burden of proof or persuasion is on the applicant to show that an applicant complies with approval criteria. The criteria for a use variance is outlined in section 113.27, which lists 8 factors. I'm not going to name them all. 1 is physical characteristics. Enough said. 2, effects from the change in the variance on neighboring property values. An impact on the environment, such as congestion, noise, increased traffic, and most importantly, storm water management. Mr. Yates did not provide a thorough engineering analysis of the detention pond specific to the site to ensure the neighborhood from runoffs. What's more, considering the structure will be in close proximity to Donnell Middle School, to Donnell Football Stadium, and to the Donnell practice field, it is shocking that no studies were done in order to avoid congestion and safeguard our children. Now, with regard to the area variances, The applicable, review criteria is outlined in section 115.05. It includes 7 things set forth by the Ohio Supreme Court known as the Duncan factors. Mr. Yates failed to satisfy his burden of proof in this area as well. One of the factors is whether the essential character will be altered, and it will. Next, whether neighboring properties will be harmed, and yes, they will. Thirdly, Mr. Yates knew about the restrictions when he purchased the property. If council chooses to approve these variances, Mr. Yates must first be required to submit a detailed report and evidence needed to satisfy his burden of proof. I urge each of you to consider the lasting impact that tonight's decision can have for generations to come. An apartment building of this size will change the look and feel of our Donnell community forever. It is imperative to cast a vote based on facts and not influenced by the desired outcome of special interests at the expense of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Deborah? Thank you very much. And so I'm going to butcher both names on this one. Is it Luann or Laune? Betcher? Lori, we need to talk about printing. Lori, and she is at 1120 Hurd Avenue, talking concerning West McPherson.
A lot of my concerns have already been addressed here, but I just want to bring up a couple of things that I feel have not been adequately addressed in this whole apartment building complex. One thing that I am really concerned about is the parking, especially if this variance does pass. If you have 24 units and you have 2 people potentially living in each unit, that could potentially be 48 cars. This parking will only allow for 41 parking places. I know that there was supposedly some analytics that were put together to say that it could be like 1.5 people living in every single apartment, but we don't know that until they move in here. On West McPherson, where this is located, there is absolutely no parking on the street that the apartment building is on, that side of the street. On the other side, directly in front of them, again, there's no parking. So where are all these cars going to park? Also, if people come over and visit, are they going to be parking in the street too? Another thing that I have concerns about is the traffic flow here. Anybody who lives in the West McPherson area knows that you don't go down to Main Street and even try to turn left there. You're not going to be able to do it. It's just too congested. So people are going to find other ways to get to the downtown area. Probably one of the quickest ways is to go around the curve and go down Hurd Avenue. Hurd Avenue at this point is a narrow street. We have parking that is already allowed over on the east side, and you can't have 2 cars pass through that with a car on the side parking too. So that's going to congest the area. People could be crossing over into other roads just to get to the light at Baldwin to go there too. So it amazes me that there was nothing looked into traffic flow here with what's going on with the stadium and the middle school, and also just the practice fields being constantly used. And the last thing that I want to bring up is the stormwater sewage. If we have 24 units that are going to be there, that's pretty much going to double the number of residents in a small area for the entire road of McPherson. That is going to be 24 washing machines, 24 toilets, 24 showers, 24 dishwashers, 24 sinks. All that stormwater has to go somewhere. Currently, where I live, if I get more than 2 inches of rain anymore, I get water in my basement. And incidentally, I didn't even have that issue until Donnell was built, but that's a whole nother story. So we are pretty much downhill from there. So I am concerned about how this is going to affect us and what kind of studies were made for stormwater and sewage. And the last thing I would just like to say is that city zoning limited this at one point to 16 units, 53 parking spaces. To me, that sounds reasonable. That's more than enough parking for 16 units. So why is anybody even considering trying to up this and getting rid of some parking spaces too? And in my personal opinion, I feel that if this is to go in, perhaps Mr. Yates needs to look at a place where the zoning allows his wishes and put his building there. Thank you for your time.
Questions or comments for Lori? Thank you, Lori. Next up is Brooks Bossy, and he lives at 210 East McPherson. And
Are you going to bring the...
I'm going to bring it down to
Well, you're a good man. Jeff, thank you so much.
Has this ever been done before?
You are the first. You're special for this, so.
Pardon? Is it on? Yeah, COVID almost got me, so that's what all this oxygen thing is. Thank you for listening to us. My name is Brooks Bossy. I live at 210 East McPherson. I've lived on that street for 34 years, and so I've seen a lot of things change in that area. And you can see my notes aren't very organized, so I apologize. I'd like to talk about 3 different things, and I know I'm going to go over the 4-minute, and I'll try to get the big items out. The first is trust and respect. The second is traffic and safety. And the third is neighborhood beauty and ambiance. I'm going to start out with trust and respect. The first time I heard about this project was when it was in the paper. And when I heard that the zoning commission voted for it, I thought, this thing's going to go through. Me alone, I'm not going to be able to stop this. So I just surrendered and said, whatever. Until Tom came by and had me sign the petition. Appreciate that, Tom. So I think we have a chance. I just think it's disrespectful to not put a decent sign in front of that property showing what is to be built. All there was a yellow sign with zoning something something. And I never noticed. I drive by it all the time. Never noticed it, and it wasn't up very long. It comes down after I think the zoning commission votes on it. But here again, I'm relying on the zoning commission to do the right thing and protect us and maintain our property values. I feel they failed us miserably. The only no vote on that zoning commission is someone who lives in the neighborhood, who loves the neighborhood and understands how beautiful and how sleepy and nice it is. So I think there was a little bit of disrespect there. And now here we are up against this really important vote tonight. Sorry, I'm going through. I'm not organized. I'm sorry. From a safety service perspective, yesterday when we met, we asked about the traffic, and someone in the city said, "Well, the apartments just empty into a 4-lane road, no problem," and that's all they said. What does that meet your satisfaction? That assessment by the zoning commission or whoever came up with that? Again, I'm going to compound on what the nice woman said before. This apartment is going to be transient. Young people. What do young people do? They drive fast. If they're marathoners, if I'm a marathoner, I'll probably shoot down through Hurd on the Lima on the way to Marathon. They're going to be going through Summit, Hurd, Stadium, and East Make Drive, driving fast. You have kids all throughout that neighborhood, and that's a safety issue. And secondly, and she mentioned also, have you ever done a left turn off McPherson? Either way. You got to be an air traffic control expert to find a gap. And when you find one, you're still not sure you saw everything, and so you creep out into the intersection with your teeth grit, because you got Main Street going, you got 6th Street going, you got people pulling out of.
Hey, Brooks,
yeah.
Brooks, hold on. We hit the 4 minutes. Mr. Wobser?
I'd make a motion that we extend Brooks just a couple more minutes, Brooks.
Okay.
Can you sum things up for us?
Okay, I'll
second,
try.
Second by everybody, all in
Okay.
favor of,
Aye.
aye.
So
Okay, Brooks.
I think the city is on notice. It's not if, but when something bad happens from a traffic perspective. The storm and sewer, I didn't even think about that. My basement floods when it floods real heavily. It's storm sewer connection on McPherson. We get everything. Have you looked at what this thing's going to look like? White doors, white with dark blue. 3-story. If you paint it red, it's going to look like a red roof inn. Where's the zoning commission to protect us from that? You have the National Limestone Building. Beautiful structure. A heritage, assisted living. Beautiful structure. They manicure it. You got nicely taken care of houses around it. You got probably the prettiest park in Findlay, Donnell Park, and a beautiful stadium. And we're going to plop a 3-story red roof in. It looks cheap. Looks like a motel right in the middle of something like that. Sorry, I should be more prepared. I'm going to miss a really important one, but oh well. So I've learned you don't trust someone very long because things change. So I heard, oh, these are going to be 1-year leases, and we're going to landscape. Well, I think that's going to change. When business doesn't go good, the landscape budget goes to zero. The city has come through and cut down 40% of our trees, shade trees. AAP, they've slapped power poles in. You don't trust Speedway? They respected the neighborhood. You know that brick wall between Speedway and the neighborhood? That was for us. That was their respect towards us. They came to my house and asked for my support. I never had anybody come to my house to talk about this. No respect from this project, as far as I'm concerned. So trust, respect, out the window. Now, Speedway owns 2 houses on McPherson. Here comes the trust thing again. They're abandoned, and they're starting to look abandoned. So I trusted them, and look what happened. So please, City Council, please, don't let something like this get built on McPherson. It's a beautiful street. The mayor has mentioned McPherson twice in 2 separate articles in the paper about our beauty. And it just seems like we're losing it slowly and slowly. Maybe the city and the developer can find land out amongst and reduce his costs on land somehow. I would probably be okay if it was 2-story and just not so huge. Every time I go by it, anybody who looks at it, they're going to get stressed out, like, oh my God, sitting at the football games, you look over, it's the highest point. I'm not a surveyor, but that looks like the highest point in our neighborhood all around. So we're going to be seeing this at night. This thing's going to be lit up like a Christmas tree. So please, please. Don't. Thank you.
Next up is Andrew Yates, 9820 Glenmar, concerning McPherson.
All
I will keep it relatively short and sweet tonight. I think we touched on quite a bit last night. One thing I did want to touch on, I think a couple of people had mentioned, was just the current zoning. So I live here in the area. I've invested in the area, and one of the challenges for me is finding areas that are attractive for potential residents that are zoned appropriately. I can tell you it almost doesn't exist. It's very difficult, especially the closer you get to downtown. So with this situation with the Y and this building, I spent a tremendous amount of time looking for options, and it boiled down to literally two parcels. The other was in the flood zone, so that wasn't ideal. So as part of this, for the same reason everybody is here, it's a nice area, and I respect that they're here. The same reason that people enjoy the area is the same reason it would be attractive for prospective tenants. One of the challenges I have now is everybody knows the demand for housing, the need for housing. I can't tell you how many people we've talked to that live outside of Findlay that work here, young professionals that just can't find anything. And my goal in this is to try to provide something that Findlay needs desperately, and not just in a flood zone area, but this area can allow them views of Lake Cascades that others don't have. It allows some amenities that other apartments don't offer. Again, I know there are concerns, and I don't care to address all of them. We talked about those at length yesterday, but understand that I live in Findlay. Look at my track record. I've done other things that I think are an addition and an asset to the community, and my intent is to do the same with these as well. So I would just ask you to consider, obviously, everybody's concerns. I will do everything in my power to address those. If this passes tonight, I'm still going to try to accommodate a lot of these concerns. One of them being, I talked to someone last night as far as security. In the past, I've given a discount for a police officer to live at one of my properties as long as his patrol vehicle was present when he's at home. That pretty much took care of the issue in a not as nice of a location. So I'm willing to work with people to make the community as best as I can, and also provide housing that Findlay desperately needs. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Mr. Yates? Thank you, Andrew. And that ends our no. And that ends our oral communications. Moving on to written communications.
Received emails from Willard Cam, Mike K, Deb Prigbon, sorry, and Kathy Weingent.
Questions or comments? Emails be filed. Reports of municipal officers and municipal departments.
Findlay Municipal Court Activities Report for June 2023.
Questions or comments? Report to be filed.
Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for June 8th, 2023.
Questions or comments? Minutes to be filed.
A letter from Mayor Mern regarding Norfolk Southern Railroad project.
Mr. Wobser.
Jeremy or Rob, I had a couple of questions on this, on the request that we've got for this laydown area for the rebuilding of the railroad bridge, correct? Which is a great thing. We all know this has got to get done. We need to do something to accommodate this. It makes sense. My question, first question was, we were looking at putting our public works garage in a property that's adjacent to this laydown area. What's the situation with that? Are we still going forward with that, and does this interfere in any way with that?
So address, I guess, the first question with that project. We're kind of on hold right now. That is a large sum for what we were looking at. So before we really dive into the project, we want to kind of master plan on what's our next step. We don't want to set up, okay, this will get us 5 years, this will get us 10 years. We want to look, okay, how's this going to look in 20 years, 3 years, how it's fit. So that right now it's on hold until we kind of master plan that area. As for this laydown area, if you look at the map that was kind of included with the MOU, that yellow area is actually south of the Greenway site driveway. So where we were looking to put the building wasn't even within that area. So that driveway to the Greenway site will still be maintained open. So that is far enough south that even if we do say proceed forwards, it will have no effect going forwards with that.
Okay, very good. I get then. My other concern on this was cleanup of the site. We don't have anything listed in our agreement with the Maumee watershed district. How is that going to be handled?
So if you look at, I think it's Article 2, Section A, it does list in there that once construction is completed, that everything will be restored to the previous condition of the conclusion. Normally what we do with that as well is we'll take, we do this in construction projects, we'll take pre-pictures so that way we have evidence of what's actually out there. We can't just, claim, oh, our asphalt got cracked because you guys know. We'll take the videos or take the pictures, videos, and all that kind of stuff. Everyone will have access to them, but that will ensure that it will go back to the way it was before.
Then that's good, Jeremy. Thank you for that. Is this site paved? I didn't have a chance to go out and look. It is not, so it's ground.
It's grass. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Have we seen the reciprocal, or is there a reciprocal agreement between Norfolk Southern and MWCD?
I haven't seen one, but within that Section 2A, it's pretty much saying within there that the Maumee watershed is, pretty much enforcing Norfolk Southern as well within that. So I haven't seen agreement between those two. But, looking at the MOU and that section that I pointed out, I feel comfortable with the enforcement they have and the agreement we have between the three of us that, going forward, said if it needs restored, it will be restored. And the reason that to me comes up pretty strongly is that we have a section here that talks about if we need to expand this, the agreement, then we go between the city and directly to Norfolk Southern. We don't go through the watershed. Correct.
So that really puts a link in there that otherwise is not contractually taken care of.
Right, and we did see that too, and it's kind of one of those that we would have to negotiate with Norfolk Southern before we proceed forwards, because the only other property near that location without them crossing the tracks would be the area where the future site of the building could be. So we would really have to sit down with them and see what timelines are, make sure it does not hinder any other project that we have going within our own property. So as of right now, I'm not concerned with them going in the future, but if they do approach us with that that's where we will be coming back to you you guys with all the timelines and stuff.
Very good. Do we have a timeline yet?
For this project?
Yep.
I do not know of one right now.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
Letter from Mayor Mern regarding Carlin property opportunity.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed.
A letter from City Engineer Kalb regarding Fire Strict Facility, project number 31994900.
Questions or comments? Letter to be filed. Committee reports.
The Strategic Planning Committee met on July 18th, 2023 to continue discussing the strategic planning process. We recommend to send the final draft of the strategic plan to council for approval.
Mr. Wobser.
Before I make a motion to accept this committee report, I'd like to say a couple of thank yous, not a couple, but many thank yous for all the folks in the community that have spent time helping us with input on this strategic plan. This process actually started back in 2017 and has taken us this long to complete, and I think it was time well spent. This plan is concise and well thought out. I believe, as does the Strategic Planning Committee, that it is a world-class plan. It's very fitting of our community and the top micropolitan city in the United States. One thing I ask council to remember as you read through this and get ready to vote on it is remember that the overriding theme of this is that the plan is for the city, and the things that we do through the administration, through city council, on all the other elected officials. So it's geared towards things that we can control to expand, to do things for our city. At the, when we come to this resolution, I'm going to ask for this to be tabled later on, or during that, because I would like more time for the community to be able to read the final draft. It has changed just a little bit since we did the presentation at the Marathon Performing Arts Theater, and so I'll ask for this to be tabled. You can agree or not, that's fine, and we'll go from there. But again, thank you for everyone that's put in all the time and effort to come to this conclusion with this draft agreement. Thank you. And I'll make a motion to approve the committee report.
And a second from Mr. Palmer. Questions or comments? All in favor of accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
And the committee report has been accepted.
The Water and Sewer Committee met on July 26, 2023 to discuss water billing adjustments. We recommend the Water Department offer a payment plan of up to 24 months for excessively high bills due to water transmitter project. Also, any accounts with a 500% variance from the previous to most recent bill is eligible for up to 75% of lost water costs to be waived.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for acceptance of Water and Sewer Committee report.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy.
I'm going to vote against it tonight only because I think we have part of it under control when we're addressing some of the citizens. I think the gentleman that spoke tonight asking how we got to the 500%, had a valid question. I kind of asked it after the meeting. We aren't really looking at whether you had a leak or not to get to that 500%. It was kind of said, hey, if you filled your swimming pool that year, you got it for half price. So there was no, when it's the 50% for the water leak to the house, they had to have a plumber come out. Here, there's nothing to validate. So the person that's 499%, I think we still need to adjust for. I like that there's a payment plan, but I think we need to address everybody.
Other questions or comments? All in favor of the accepting the committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Nay.
It is accepted. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry, Holly.
You weren't listening to me. Say it.
I was. Every word.
No problem.
Thank you.
The Appropriations Committee, to whom was referred a request to discuss the Water Department truck purchase. We recommend to Council to acknowledge that in Ordinance 2023-69, there will be an additional service bed from a different vendor added to the truck and purchase.
Mr. Wobser.
We had this meeting very quickly to make sure that we understood exactly what it was that we were buying for the water plant. We've come to a good conclusion. We got a good price on this. I think we're good to go. So we're good to go with approving of that expenditure. With that, I'd make a motion to approve the committee report.
Second, Mr. Ballman. Questions or comments? And I'll ask mine then, Jeff, to start. This is referencing 069, which we passed last week. So are we thinking, or last meeting, are we thinking of, is there an amendment that we're looking to do, or it was just an understanding, please, Mr. Wobser?
No, there's no amendment. We went through and we stayed within the same guidelines of the appropriated amounts, and so we're well within what we approved previously.
Okay, thank you.
And we had that certified by the auditor's assistant, or the assistant deputy auditor. I apologize, Ginger, I didn't get your title wrong.
Ms. Frishy.
So I will vote for this tonight, this committee report to be accepted. However, acknowledging that there wasn't full disclosure happening when we were talking about waiving the price for bids on a pickup truck, and that we don't always do both parts at once. I think there's better transparency that needs to happen and better questions, answers that need to happen in the future with any vehicle in any department, unfortunately, from this situation.
Mr. Wobser.
Actually, I think the term transparency in this is misfounded. Everything that we did was transparent. However, I would say that the process itself needs to be amended, and that was what was discussed at the meeting, and I think we'll do a better job in that in the future.
Ms. Frishy.
To clarify my statement, in our council meeting, when we made the motion to waive the formal bid process, we were told that we were purchasing a certain type of vehicle, and then it came through that it was a different type of vehicle, which then led to this appropriation committee to acknowledge that there was some changing taking place without discussing with council. And then we went back to the original of what was discussed after the oops was seen.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of accepting the Appropriations Committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. It is accepted. Legislation resolutions.
Second reading for Resolution 16, 2023, a resolution transferring funds within appropriated funds and declaring an emergency. First reading for Resolution 18, 2023, a resolution adopting and implementing the City of Findlay, Ohio Strategic Plan Framework, Findlay Forward.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion that this resolution be tabled.
Second, Mr. Guarino. All those in favor of tabling? Is this a,
Yep, roll call. Yep.
all those in favor of tabling the resolution, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Bowman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
And Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
The resolution has been tabled. Ordinances.
Third reading for ordinance 2023-63, an ordinance amending Chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the City of Findlay, Ohio, known as a zoning code, by rezoning the following described property referred to as 219 Hurd Avenue rezone, which previously was zoned I-1 light industrial to R3 small lot residential.
Mr. Wobser.
First off, for discussion, I'll make a motion that this ordinance be approved.
We have a motion for approval. Second, Mr. Hellman. Mr. Wobser.
We should note that this has nothing to do with the McPherson property. This is completely different. Am I correct? That is a
Correct.
question.
Yes.
So just in case anybody on council was concerned that this was somehow related, it is not.
Other questions or comments? All those in favor of the ordinance, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough? Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
And Mr. Ballman?
Aye. The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2023-64, an ordinance amending Chapter 1100 et sec of the codified ordinances of the City of Findlay, Ohio, known as a zoning code, by rezoning the following described property referred to as 0 West McPherson Avenue, parcel number 60000302210 rezone, which previously was zoned O1 Offices Institutions to M2 Multifamily High Density.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance. Second, Mr. Ballman. Comments, and I will start by calling on myself. As the chair of Planning and Zoning Committee, I wanted to kind of make my position clear on this. The question before council in any rezone request is really pretty simple. Is the proposed zoning an appropriate use of the property? It is not council's job to judge the merits of a particular project, the aesthetics, the colors, et cetera. That is the job of the City Planning Commission during their site plan review. The residents in the neighborhood meeting last night said themselves that a duplex or triplex would be appropriate on this site, and that really means M2 zoning, which is what is being requested. The housing needs in Findlay and Hancock County are real. We know that we have thousands of people who drive into town every day because they cannot find what they feel is adequate housing. So we know we have a shortage. To deny the requested zoning classification is to effectively kill the realistic, productive, and best use for this property. This property would not generate any increased property tax revenue. It will not provide housing for any citizens. It will not provide income tax generation from the citizens who live there. With that said, the applicant actually did bring a site plan with his request, and I kind of think that was to his detriment. If he simply asked for the M2 zoning without details of what he was looking to build, I honestly think it would have probably gone through with an area of concern, and then the conversations here would be directed at the planning commission during site plan review. But instead, Mr. Yates did present them all at one time, and here we are. And I am not a developer. I don't pretend to know the business of developing housing projects. I cannot imagine that Mr. Yates, who appears to be a very successful developer specializing in Hancock County, would actually undertake this project if he didn't think that there was demand for the units that he was going to build and that it would be successful. And based on his track record, he constructs and rehabs into outstanding properties. So because the site plan is there, in effect, I believe he will make the best use of for this property. Am I concerned with the size? Absolutely. Am I concerned with the intensity? Absolutely. But that's why a zoning variance has been requested, and that's where a lot of the zoning, that's where those zoning variance concerns would be appropriately heard at the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. But to vote no on this means no M2 zoning. It will remain office and institutions, which can house a 4-story building if desired, and it will in essence effectively mean that property will remain vacant for the long future. Because I do understand that we are looking at what is an appropriate use for the property, I am voting in favor of the amendment or of the ordinance. Other comments? Ms. Frischi.
So I also sit on planning and zoning. When this originally came, I met with Andrew. He is a good developer. He does some nice things in the community. I like the idea of having a local developer and not somebody out of Columbus. I voted for the zoning change primarily because there was no objection at our meeting for it. And I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Since that day, there's been a lot of communication, a lot of rumbling going on in the neighborhoods. And I take it back to, in my neighborhood, I had somebody, they wanted to make a mother-in-law suite usable as an apartment. And I said, whoa, not in my neighborhood, because I'm single-family zoned, right? I remember being on city council, and the only time I've ever seen a rezone not go through was over on Spruce Drive behind Michael Eller several years ago. There was a small awkward lot backing up into those $300,000 homes, and nobody was saying a darn thing. And I'm thinking, wow, they don't mind that in their backyard. They wanted to make a duplex, triplex, I believe, and I think it was possibly going to be a rehab facility. And nobody was saying anything. And I reached out to a couple people I knew. They said, it's not going to happen. It's not going to pass. And I said, hey, if you don't show up and you don't give valid reason, not emotional reasons, but valid reasons of why we shouldn't rezone, I'm not going to vote against it. So I'm glad that I was able to help coordinate that meeting yesterday. I hear it was pretty lengthy, but hopefully you guys got some questions answered. But tonight, for me, what I gathered you guys must have got from that meeting, you have brought some valid concerns for me to pause. And it's a hard decision for me to pause because I want to support that that project at the same time, because we do need housing. So there's like that special balance we have to have. But when we're talking the variances and so forth, the traffic flow, the water and sewer, yes, those are not part of the zoning change. That's what Grant said. But I would like to have more of that information figured out before we make that zoning change, only because if it's going to cause a water sewer issue, if it's going to cause a traffic safety issue, I did not ever think about the turn on to Hurd going down to 2 lanes. I thought when somebody said something to me, I said, can we make that exit go out onto Cascade Parkway to eliminate that? Those are all questions to try to find that give and take for everybody, because I think he has a good concept. I don't think him moving that building from the Y over is going to be an ugly building. But I do also agree with the concern that we went through the whole demolition program and we got into some muddy water and we didn't move that project forward because our mayor sat on a board and all of that fun stuff. And I do kind of see that concern again. So I'm really torn tonight. I wish we could table it and take it further down the line before we make that zoning change. Because if you do make the zoning change and setbacks are made and all the requirements are there, yes, you can have multifamily there. So.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Wobser.
First, I appreciate Councilman Russell's perspective on this. He's probably one of the foremost experts when it comes to zoning in this city. He knows it better than anybody on council. And I appreciate the way he looks at this. I think Holly hit some very good points also. I'm going to vote against this tonight. I think that it doesn't, the way that the current rendering doesn't fit with that neighborhood. There are a lot of concerns that were brought up that quite frankly, I don't think are valid, that need to be worked out. I appreciate them being brought forward, but there is a lot of that just really doesn't fit into that conversation as a valid point. However, with that said, I think there's some things that could be done with this that could turn it back into a good project, help us with the very much needed housing in Findlay, Ohio, we're desperate for that, but we'll still keep in the fitting into the neighborhood better than what we're currently looking at. And it's a tough situation given. I appreciate all the people that came out and spoke their minds on this. It's part of being involved in government, and I'm hoping that they met with a couple of folks last night that quite frankly had never been involved in something like this and were upset that they didn't know about it. Brooks is yelling at me afterwards. He didn't know. Well, I'm going to challenge each and one of you who were at the meeting last night and are here tonight to speak about this, to think about how notification should work. People didn't like the yellow signs. They used to be white. We turned them yellow so they'd be more noticeable. Well, they said it was the same color as grass. Well, hell, if it rained more, it wouldn't have been. You all need to take this opportunity, and I would welcome emails, not phone calls necessarily, but emails to me saying what would notification look like and would take away this issue of notification, because this has come up before. It's going to come up later in the conversation, in another conversation tonight. In today's day and age, in a world that is more connected than we've ever been, I have more people come up and say they don't know anything that's happening than ever before. So it's strange, right? Nobody reads a newspaper anymore. Well, nobody gets a newspaper. That's a whole nother problem. But I would appreciate people saying, hey, how do we make notifications such that folks are aware of things happening in their neighborhood so that we can take care of that in a certain way so everybody's satisfied.
Other questions or comments? All those in favor of the ordinance, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Greeno.
Nay.
Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Nay.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wopser.
Nay.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Nay.
1, 2, 3, 4 nay. 4 nay, 6 in favor.
And the ordinance is accepted. And we'll take a quick 2-minute recess while the
Our mom and our own ward voted for this.
Wow, that's good.
Because it needs to be done. It needs to be done. We need the housing. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere near as bad as
Sorry.
with ordinance 2023-065.
Stay connected with it.
Third reading for ordinance 2023-065, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for bids and enter into contracts for the construction of various projects listed below, appropriating and transferring funds thereto, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Greeno.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2023-065.
Second, Mr. Ballman. Questions or comments? Ms. Frishy.
Is this, Jeremy, the one, does it have the money in it for sidewalk discussion? Is that this ordinance? So we haven't even made a decision on that. Should that be in there already?
No, because that's going to the sidewalk committee to discuss. You know, we want to have plans for you guys where we're thinking about putting these. This isn't just putting sidewalks or fixing a sidewalk here. It's where it's needed for ADA access type. But as of right now, that would be discussed as part of that Streets and Sidewalk Committee.
But it's going to be in this ordinance to appropriate.
Correct.
Other questions or comments? All in favor of the ordinance, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
And Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Third reading for ordinance 2023-68, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or service safety director of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to advertise for bids and enter into contracts with option years for the purchase of materials, chemicals, and service agreements needed by the various departments of the city of Findlay, Ohio, commencing January 1st, 2024, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Ballman.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2023-068.
Second, Mr. Slough. Questions or comments? All in favor of the ordinance, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
Mr. Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Slough.
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki.
Aye.
Mr. Wobser.
Aye.
Mr. Ballman.
Aye.
Ms. Frishy.
Aye.
Mr. Greeno.
Aye.
And Mr. Hellman.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
Second reading for ordinance 2023-71, an ordinance authorizing the mayor, service safety director, and/or city engineer of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a contract with Strand and Associates Incorporated to provide design and engineering services of the downtown recreation area Phase 2 benching of the Blanchard River, project number 31913700, appropriating funds and declaring an emergency. Second reading for ordinance 2023-72, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and/or service safety director of the city of Findlay, Ohio, to enter into a memorandum of understanding granting the city of Findlay permission to store various city equipment in the Findlay City School District Board of Education's vacant building located at 0 Blanchard Avenue, parcel number 610001017675, as set forth in the memorandum of understanding attached hereto as Exhibit A, and declaring an emergency. First reading for ordinance 2023-73, An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Findlay, Ohio to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Maumee Watershed Conservancy District as set forth in the memorandum of agreement attached hereto as Exhibit A and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Wobser.
Given the situation that we've got here, this is moving pretty quick. I'd make a motion to suspend council rules and give this ordinance its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Palmer. All those in favor of suspending council's statutory rules and giving this ordinance its second and third reading, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Nay.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
And Mr. Niemeyer.
Aye.
The rules have been suspended, and this ordinance will be given its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2023-73, ordinance 2023-73.
Mr. Wobser.
Make a motion to approve.
Second, Mr. Hellman. Questions or comments? All those in favor of the ordinance, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Russell?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
And Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
The ordinance is adopted.
First reading for ordinance 2023-74, an ordinance appropriating funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Ballman.
Given that this is just us accepting funds, I would make a motion for ordinance number 2023-074 to be given its second and third reading.
Second, Mr. Palmer. Questions or comments? You know I can't let this one go by. As a longtime member of the Findlay Kiwanis, I was extremely proud of my club when they accepted the challenge to fund the Strick Center. And actually, the way this came about is in a conversation with Chief Eberly, and he in essence said, "We're looking for funding for this. Would you be interested? How much money do you need?" And I think he gave a number of 5,000, and the club came back and said, "How about 15?" I think it was 15, because they liked the project and they liked and they saw the merit in it. The Kiwanis reflects the community, and the Kiwanis the Findlay Kiwanis Club was generous in their efforts, and that's because the community is generous. I'm proud to be a member of the club, and obviously fully support what they've done, and appreciate the opportunity to speechify on this. But other questions or comments? Mr. Ballman.
I would also just echo Councilman Russell's comments. I am also a proud Kiwanian, and this is what our club is around for, and the betterment of our community. And as I said, proud member. That's it.
Questions or comments, others? All those in favor of this most outstanding ordinance ever, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Pro Tem?
Yes, sir.
This is suspend.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
Son of a gun.
A little too excited there.
No comments are supposed to be made while you're suspending the rules. I'll let this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for not stopping me, but I have it written down. I'll say it again.
Please.
All those in favor of suspending council statutory rules and giving this its second and third reading, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Russell?
Aye. The council statutory rules have been suspended, and the ordinance will be given its second and third reading.
Ordinance 2023-74, ordinance 2023-74.
Mr. Ballman.
Move for adoption of ordinance number 2023-074.
And I will second. Questions or comments? And this just goes to prove that I cannot sign my name and run a meeting at the same time. All those in favor of the ordinance, please say aye after your name is called. Those opposed, nay.
Ms. Warnicki?
Aye.
Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
Mr. Ballman?
Aye.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Aye.
Mr. Niemeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Palmer?
Aye.
Mr. Slough?
Aye.
And Mr. Russell?
Aye. That's the end of legislation. Old business. New business. Mr. Wobser.
Last week, I had the opportunity to sit down with the mayor, Mr. Craig Kuchbaugh, and Tom Ross. Tom is the head of the Apartment Owners Association, or the Rental Association. I can't remember what the name exactly is, but it's the group that had started to bring the referendum that was ultimately pulled from the list. We had a good conversation with Tom and got the conversation moving on the 3 different referendums that they were putting forth. One of those, with the third one, I would like to address tonight very quickly. One of the things that Tom brought up, and really I think, quite honestly, the overriding theme of his and the people that brought this referendum to us was they simply want to be heard. And I think that if we saw nothing else for the folks that showed up last night to the McPherson meeting and the folks that were here tonight speaking on that situation, we need, as a council, it's incumbent upon us to give as much opportunity within reason to our citizens to let their feelings and be known to council and made publicly aware. So I think, I brought up to the full group, they need to let us know what notification looks like these days. It is difficult because, quite frankly, I thought we did a good job when we expanded the radius around an area for letters to go out. I thought that was a good move, but it still wasn't quite good enough. The yellow signs, okay, not good enough. So we've got to find ways around that, so I hope we can get there. The main issue here, and one of the things that I had suggested that would take care of the third thing on the referendum, was that we amend council's rules to go from 4 minutes to speak to 6. If you'll remember, prior to the change, we had been 6. When that got skinnied down, and I don't propose any other changes except that one thing. And I think for the folks that have been here for a while, I have never not given anybody the opportunity to speak if they needed more time. So I don't think this is an issue that would cause any problems with our council meetings. So I'd like to make a motion that we amend council's rules to 6 minutes per person to address council at the beginning of our meetings. And this is specifically references section 1, or section I, number 2, paragraph 2. And I would make that motion.
Second, Mr. Greeno. So we have a motion to amend our rules on the table. Questions or comments? Ms. Warnicki.
I'm basically just not for this. I've been on council for 4 years, and 4 minutes seems like it's fine. Again, during that time, I've never seen where we haven't allowed someone to speak longer. We had to do 4-minute speeches when we were running for office, and you can say a lot in 4 minutes. And also, you can lose track of your audience if you go too long. You need to catch their attention. It's well known within 30 seconds. I think 4 minutes is fine, and I also think that if we're going to amend council's rules, it should come from within council instead of being asked for from outside.
Other questions or comments? And so I'll make one. Jeff, I just pulled up the rules from 2014 and 15 because, yes, I actually have them on my computer. These are the rules that I used as the basis for the reformulation, and it was 4 minutes at that point in time. To move to 6 minutes gives the public more time to address issues than council members, which are capped at 5 minutes per round, and as was proven tonight with Brooks going over 8 minutes. We are very open to public comment, and we actually unanimously allowed more than 3 people to speak on the issue, and gave extra time to 2 of the speakers. I know when the council's rules committee looked at this, the reason we have the 4-minute limit is in the case that there's legislation that a minority doesn't want, and then they try to filibuster the meeting by lining up 100 speakers that are going to take 4 minutes or 6 minutes. That's the thought behind that rule. And I also, if we wanted to address the time limit, we'll have an opportunity at the end of the year when we'll have a committee to look at rules once again, and also committee assignments for the new council. That might be an appropriate time to look at it too. Mr. Wobser.
Appreciate your comments, Councilman Russell, and thank you for the clarification on the previous time. The one thing, however, that we do have in there that I'm not suggesting that we change is if we wanted to, we can limit discussion for or against any specific topic to 3 people. That is still in there. So tonight we decided not to, have limited to 3 people speaking for, or in this case against, the McPherson rezone. So that would keep us from the filibuster issue if we wanted to.
Mr. Harrington.
Normally I don't butt in, but as the acting mayor, I think I got a chance to say that my job as a president of council is to take the rules that you have come up with and enforce them. And I take a lot of flack from council members, some public, that when I do, they accuse me of interrupting. They accuse me of not being, allowing them their free speech. Not whatsoever. Anybody knows me personally, that is not the case. I'm following the rules that you, as council members, have determined. I understand their concern. I'm not sure if they understand that there is the opportunity by council to extend their remarks as long as needed. I agree. I've never seen it not be agreed to by council as a majority to allow anybody to continue to speak. It's not a free speech issue, none whatsoever. And I think anybody that makes it a free speech issue doesn't understand the rule, and I don't think they understand the council themselves. There might be 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I don't think it really matters, because they're going to get to speak the time that they want. I also sat for a number of years on the Rules Committee, and when we do address issues like this, there's normally a reason. And it's not a reason to stifle conversation, not whatsoever. That's never been the case. I've never seen any council person try to stifle conversation on any subject at any time. And including me as the president of council, including the administration, that's just not the case. And as a happy compromise, that's up to you. You change the rules, I'll enforce the rules.
Other questions or comments? We'll do this just on a voice vote to start. All those in favor of changing council rules as has been suggested, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. And let's do a roll call.
Mr. Ballman?
Nay.
Ms. Frishy?
Aye.
This is to change the council rules, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Greeno?
Aye.
Mr. Hellman?
Nay.
Mr. Niemeyer? Aye. Mr. Palmer?
Nay.
Mr. Russell?
Nay.
Mr. Slough? Nay. Ms. Warnicki? Nay. Mr. Wobser?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a split vote.
And the rules are not changed.
5-5.
I thought I had 3. I had 5-5.
No, it was 4-6.
It lost.
Yeah.
I had Bowman, Hellman, Palmer, Russell, Slough, and Ricky. Oh.
6 nays.
Other new business. Mr. Martin.
If I may, I don't want to extend the meeting any longer. Couple quick notes. Tonight is National Night Out at, I didn't hear it, I'm sure it was funny. Tonight's National Night Out over at Riverside Park. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's a nice, it's a nationally recognized night, but we have Flag City Night Out, and that's when Hancock County Safety Services get together and bring out demos with dogs, our canine animals, and fire trucks and ambulances, and they have races and food, and the community really comes out and makes a great night of this. It grows every year. That's why both chiefs are not here tonight, and it's on till 9. If you feel that you'd like to go out and kind of see a representation of safety services throughout our county, that's going on, and maybe say thank you to who serves us in the darkest hours of the night. So, and on top of that, one more topic, if I may. We've been talking about body-worn cameras now for quite some time. We've been working through the logistics of the back office things that needed to be worked through for implementation and go live. We are very soon to go live in the upcoming weeks. I will be, this is just a heads up, I will be sending out a punch list of things in the next couple days, so you all will be informed before it gets rolled out. So it's a timing thing. The infrastructure had to be rolled out in wiring and so forth, and that went from not done to done in a hurry. We're going through training and things, so I will provide a lot more in-depth detail from the police chief here in the next day or so. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that's coming. So that's it. Thank you.
Do you? I'll call on myself. Do you have an expectation of when we think we'll start to see, at least on a trial basis, cameras on?
Realistically, in the next 2 weeks, we're hoping to go live.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wobster? Yeah, any other questions or comments for Rob?
If, obviously, when that information goes out, if you have any questions or you want to have dialogue about it, the police chief and I are more than willing to sit down and walk through that with you if you want to know more about it.
Would it be worthwhile, Rob and council, to set up a kind of a committee of a whole with kind of almost a demonstration of the technology, how it works, et cetera?
Yeah.
Would there be interest on council to do so? And
Yeah.
I thought we had a request for a committee of the whole here.
We
for
do.
The,
That's what I was going to bring up, Councilman Russell. So we could combine those two topics. I'm going to guess
No
that
problem.
probably need about 30 minutes to discuss the Carlin property and how that's all coming together. And maybe we could use an additional 30 minutes, 45 minutes, Rob, for you to go through that.
Absolutely. That'd be great. Thank you.
and do you have a date? I can't remember the date.
So
on it.
in the Carlin Street property letter from the mayor, she had suggested August 9th or 10th. Just taking a quick poll up here on the upper tier, not making a comment that we're any better than people at the lower tier, but we're in favor of Wednesday the 9th. How does that work? By show of hands, who would prefer the 9th?
Yeah.
I'd say what, 5 o'clock? Everybody make 5? Okay.
Committee of the whole, August 9th at 5 o'clock. 2 topics, demo of body-worn cameras and a presentation by Habitat.
Do we want to do that upstairs in the mayor's conference room, or do we need to be down here? Upstairs?
Let's
Rob, what
go.
would be better for your presentation? I think that's going to take precedent in this location. Very good. So we'll do the mayor's conference room.
Yeah, let's do that. Thanks, Jeff. Any other new business? Mr. Hellman?
I got a quick question for Rob. You know, there was a piece in the paper, and friends of mine have already gone to that fly-in in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and there was a piece in the paper about planes and pilots stopping here for fuel. Do you have an update? Is that for real? Because the fuel is cheaper here than it is closer to Chicago and Wisconsin, and I wonder if you had any statistics on that.
If I may.
Please.
Yeah, so I do not have specific statistics. I can get those for you, but Oshkosh, the big fly-in is real.
Yeah.
It's actually a very nationally known event for aviation, and people going from the East Coast through, they stop in. Findlay's known for a stop in for fuel, and they have the nicer amenities and the nice FBO and snacks and whatnot. So we have the amenities and the fuel prices. We work very hard to make sure that we are competitive in the market, and word of mouth in that small population of general aviation, we are known to have competitive, if not lower prices in other places. So and we are still being profitable in that process. So a lot of data analysis in that. We have Kyle embodies our assistant, our manager underneath Amanda, and should sing his praises on his ability for market analysis and being able to buy fuel when it is right for us. So that works out really well for us.
Thank you. Glad to hear that.
Denny, big Notre Dame football games, especially if they're at night, will also increase your traffic. We will have a planning and zoning committee meeting on August 10th at noon. One of the items on the agenda is the Lincoln School rezone. And are we doing also zoning code review? Holly?
Just so you know, I will not be there, so if it ends up causing a quorum issue, I'm
Okay.
not available then.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Or new business? Seeing as though there's none, if anybody's in a motioning mood to adjourn, Mr. Palmer, second Mr. Baumann, all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. And we are adjourned.